Hello everyone, Jeff Murrin here, wanting to discuss a little further with you the Iliad by Homer, specifically the Robert Fagel's translation of the book, and I'm going to be looking at book 5, which is titled Diomedes Fights the Gods, and oh my gosh, does he ever. He fights everybody. If you've been keeping up with your reading via, or I would say supplementing your reading with the audio version on, let's say, Audible, or let's say on Sora or some other device where you might find this, this entire chapter, for some reason, isn't read. It is just summarized very briefly, and it is a huge disservice to do that, because this chapter is full of action. If you are one of those people that loves the battles, if you love the blood, the guts, the gore, the intrigue, and all that kind of stuff, this is a great chapter for you. So I don't want you to just hear that and think, this is not an important chapter. It's kind of a big deal, and we see a lot is revealed to us about the gods, the way they behave, the way they see things, the way they interact with the humans. And so let's just jump right in and take a look at some of this stuff. I'm going to start by reading the first paragraph of the book. It says, "Then Pallas Athena granted Tydeus' son Diomedes strength and daring, so the fighter would shine forth and tower over the Argives and win himself great glory. She set the man ablaze, his shield and helmet flaming with a tireless fire, like the star that flames at harvest, bathed in the ocean, rising up to outshine all the other stars. Such fire Athena blazed from Tydedes' head and shoulders, drove him into the center where the masses struggled on." Fire, blaze, burning, wow. A lot of times we associate flames and fires with passion, and we will see that kind of thing, the symbolism of fire throughout a lot of this. All right, so let's jump right in. I want you to take a look at page 165. All right, and I'm beginning around line 29. All right, and this is Athena speaking to Ares, and I want you to see if you can get a little bit of irony out of this particular section here. It says, "And now, despite their courage, the Trojan fighters, seeing the two sons of Dares on the run, one dead beside his chariot, and their hearts were stunned. But Athena, eyes bright, taking Ares, the god of war, taking Ares in hand, called the violent god away." Ares, destroyer of men, wreaking blood, stormer of ramparts. Why not let those mortals fight it out for themselves? Let Zeus give glory to either side he chooses. We'll stay clear and escape the Father's rage. I read that and I think, are you freaking kidding me? She's wanting to pull Ares aside and say, let's not meddle in this. Let's stay out of it. Let the humans fight the way the humans fight, and Zeus will figure it out as he wants to. She's been meddling in this whole thing since we started reading the book. But she's trying to pull Ares away because, she's wanting to control the situation. There's a little bit of irony going on in that particular thing. All right, let's move to page 168. There's some important stuff going on here. So we have it so that Diomedes is given strength in battle and takes everybody on. I mean, just lays waste to all kinds of folks and gives the Greeks a little bit of momentum. The momentum shifts, and we got, back and forth here between the Trojans and the Greeks. All right, so I'm going to be moving to page 168. There's some important stuff going on, because what happens is, if you remember the character of Pandarus, he's the one that shot Menelaus with the spear, or he's an archer, early on, whenever Menelaus and Paris were battling one another. Well, he actually hits and is successful striking Diomedes while Diomedes is on his rampage. All right, so while he's down, Diomedes, while he's down, he offers up a prayer to Athena. So I want you to pay attention to this, and then I also want you to pay attention to Athena's response to him. All right, he says, and this is about line 125 or somewhere on page 168. It says, "Hear me, daughter of Zeus, whose shield is thunder, tireless one Athena. If you ever stood by father with all your love amidst the blaze," fire imagery, "the blaze of battle, stand by me. Do me a favor now, Athena. Bring that man into range and let me spear him. He's wounded me off guard, and now he triumphs. He boasts, I won't look long on the light of day." So skipping down about 3 lines there, we see Athena's response. "Now take heart, Diomedes. Fight it out with the Trojans. Deep in your chest I've put your father's strength. He never quaked. That Tydeus, that great horseman, what force the famous shieldman used to wield. Look, I've lifted the mist from off your eyes." This is important. "I've lifted the mist from off your eyes that's blurred them up to now, so you can tell a god from a man on sight." So now if a god comes up to test your mettle, you must not fight the immortal powers head on, but all but one of the deathless gods, that is. If Aphrodite, daughter of Zeus, slips into battle, she's the one to stab with your sharp bronze spear. All right, so they lift it's lifted from his eyes who is a god and who is a mortal, okay? And so he can tell the difference. But he's warned, do not attack just any old one that you see, any god. Don't go after a god, except for Aphrodite. Now, why is that? Well, we're still holding grudges. We're still holding grudges because, if you remember, Paris chose Aphrodite as the fairest of them all, with that conflict that was going on with the golden apple of discord. So she's still wounded because of that. All right, and it kind of, if you remember, going back all the way back to the first book, whenever we had Agamemnon saying, "Well, if I have to give up the woman that I've taken as a spoil of war, then I want to take yours, and it dishonors me that you would do this, and I got to settle the score, blah, blah, blah." It's the same thing going on in the realm of the gods. There's still this deep-seated animosity between these characters. All right. So on page 169, at the very bottom of page 169, we see a character named Aeneas. All right. And Aeneas is extraordinarily important because he has his own book. All right, the Aeneid, and we will take a look at that for certain. I'm a big fan of the Aeneid. I like that story quite a bit. It, though, however, is different from this. This is written by Homer. The Odyssey was written by Homer. The Aeneid, though, is written by Virgil. Okay, and it's sort of a Trojan turned Roman viewpoint of this whole thing. So we will get the viewpoint from the Iliad, from the Greek side, and further with Odysseus and the Odyssey, and then we will flip it and kind of take a look from a different perspective when we look at the Aeneid and see things from the Trojan side. And it is that one, if I didn't mention it before, is written by Virgil, so it has a different author entirely. But we see Aeneas here. He's a very important character. This is the very bottom of 169. It says, "Smashing the lines of fighters now, but Aeneas marked it all. And oblivious to the rain of spears he waded in, hunting for Pandarus, hoping to find the archer. Find him he did, like Chaon's skilled, fearless son, and went right up and challenged him to his face. 'Pandarus, where's your bow, your winged arrows, your archer's glory? No Trojan your rival here. No Lycian can claim to be your better. No, so up with you now. Lift your hands to Zeus. You whip an arrow against that man being Diomedes, whoever he is who routs us, wreaking havoc against us, cutting the legs from under squads of good brave men. Unless it's a god who smolders at our troops, enraged at a right we failed. When a god's enraged, there's thunder at our heads. All right, so this is something that people do in this time period, is they say, look, what are you doing? We need you. You got to live up to your father's reputation. Now, sometimes people might hear that and go, golly, man, why are you being so hard on me? But a lot of times people are like, you know what? You're right. You're right. I do need to live up to my father's reputation. I need to be his son and take this on. All right. And so that's what we see here. Aeneas is trying to bolster his troops to get after Diomedes, because right now what's going on, if they can take out Diomedes, they're in good shape. All right. So take a look at my notes here. All right. We see on page 171, all right, about line 228. Now, Pandarus shoots, but hasn't made anything stick. He's an archer extraordinaire, but stuff is not clicking for him in this book the way things have happened for him in the past, according to his reputation. He says about, well, I said 228. So I left them there. I made it to Troy on foot, thrusting my bows and arrows, and a lot of good I was to get from them. Already I've let fly at 2 of their best men, Diomedes and Menelaus. I've hit them both, and the blush gushed from both direct hits, but I only roused their fury. I only made them mad. I didn't actually do anything to stop it. What bad luck to snatch this curved bow off its peg that day. I marched my Trojans hard to your lovely town of Troy to please Prince Hector. But if I get home again and set my eyes on my native land, my wife, and my fine house with the high vaulting roof, let some stranger cut my head off then and there. If I don't smash his bow and fling it in the fire, the gear I packed is worthless as the wind. Let me get back to my family and my wife. Let me survive this war. Page 173. All right. That beginning after that break there in line 310, we have Diomedes figuring that out for him. All right. So it says, shaft poised, he hurled, and its long shadow flew, and it struck Thydides' shield, the brazen spearhead, winging, drilling right on through his breastplate. Pandarus yelling over him wildly now, "You're hit clean through the side. You won't last long. I'd say, now the glory is mine." But never shaken, staunch Diomedes shot back. No hit. You missed. But the 2 of you will never quit this fight, I'd say, till one of you drops and dies and gluts with blood. Ares, who hacks at men behind his rawhide shield. With that, he, Diomedes, hurled, and Athena drove the shaft and split the archer's, Pandarus's, split the archer's nose between the eyes. It cracked his glistening teeth. The tough bronze cut off his tongue at the roots, smashed his jaw, and the point came ripping out beneath his chin. He pitched from his car, armored clanged against him. A glimmering blaze of metal dazzled around his back. The purebreds reared aside, hooves pawing the air, and his life and power slipped away on the wind. So how ironic was that? That just on the other page he said, let me get through this, let me see my wife and my kid, and then I can die. And he doesn't even make it a full page, and Diomedes ends him right there. All right. So then we see Aeneas, continuing on there. Aeneas sprang down with his shield and heavy spear, fearing the Argives might just drag away the corpse. It was a big deal not to drag away a corpse, because if someone was not given the proper burial, then that soul would just wander and never actually get to cross over into the afterworld, the underworld, okay? The realm of the dead. It would just wander as a homeless soul. All right, so Aeneas is making sure that his brother in arms, his fellow Trojan, is going to be able to get the burial that he deserves, so he can have the afterlife that he also deserves. All right. It says Aeneas straddled the body, proud in his fighting power, like some lion, shielded the corpse with spear and round buckler, burning to kill off any man who met him face to face, and he loosed the blood-curdling cry. Just as Diomedes hefted a boulder in his hands, a tremendous feat. No two men could hoist it, because he's been having the power of the gods behind him here. It says, no two men could hoist it, weak as men are now, but all on his own he raised it high with ease, flung it, and struck Aeneas' thigh, where the hip bone turns inside the pelvis, and the joint they call the cup. It smashed the socket, snapped both tendons too, and the jagged rock tore back the skin to shreds. Whew, that's good stuff, all right? So, Aeneas is damaged and hurt in battle, okay? You'll see a lot of this stuff again when we look at, I believe it's the second book of the Aeneid. Anyway, continuing on, this goes for a minute. On page 175, about line 375 maybe, where it says, but once he, Diomedes, caught her, stalking Aphrodite, through the onslaught. Gallant Tydeus's offspring rushed her, lunged out, thrusting his sharp spear at her soft, limp wrist, and the brazen point went slashing through her flesh, tearing straight through the fresh immortal robes the graces themselves had made her with their labor. So Diomedes does cut Aphrodite, like slices through her wrist. All right. He gouged her just where the wrist bone joints the palm, and immortal blood came flowing quickly from the goddess. The ichor, okay, that's the blood of the gods, that courses through their veins, the blessed gods that eat no bread, they drink no shining wine, and so the gods are bloodless, so we call them deathless. A piercing shriek, she reeled and dropped her son being Aeneas. But Phobos Apollo plucked him up in his hands and swathed him around with a swirling dark mist, for fear some Argive fast with chariot team might hurl bronze in his chest and rip his life out. But Diomedes shouted after her, shattering war cries, "Daughter of Zeus, give up the war, your lust for carnage, so it's not enough that you lure defenseless women to their ruin? Haunting the fighting are you? Now I think you'll cringe at the hint of war if you get wind of the battle far away." All right. So, Aphrodite is hurt in battle. Diomedes actually does what he's allowed to do, and that is to attack Aphrodite, and he is successful in wounding her. She goes and cries to her mommy. I'm not kidding. Let's take a look at page 176. All right. She goes to her mom. Her mom's name is Dione. All right. About line 4, let's say 417. The deathless Aphrodite sank in Dione's lap, and her mother, folding her daughter in her arms, stroked her gently, whispered her name, and asked, "Who has abused you now, dear child? Tell me. Who of the sons of heaven so unfeelingly cruel? Why, it's as if they had caught you in public doing something wrong." And Aphrodite, who loves eternal laughter, sobbed in answer, "The son of Tydeus stabbed me, Diomedes, that overweening insolent, all because I was bearing off my son from the fighting. Aeneas, dearest to me of all men alive. Look down. It's no longer ghastly war for Troy and Achaia now. I tell you, the Argives fight the gods." Trying to say, look, it's not that they're just fighting each other, now they're fighting us too. Dione, the light and loveliest of immortals, tried to calm her. "Patience, O child. Bear up now. Despite your heartsick grief, how many gods who hold the halls of Olympus have had to endure such wounds from mortal men whenever we try to cause each other pain? Ares had to endure it." So right there, what do we have? We have Aphrodite, who is one of the people that started this. She is the one who got Helen away from her husband because Aphrodite wanted to be the fairest of them all. So she had Paris take Helen from Menelaus. She's been meddling in all of these battles. She's tried to be vindictive and get back at people and all kinds of stuff. And so she gets hurt. And when she gets hurt, she goes and cries to her mommy and just says, how can these human beings be so mean? What's wrong with them? And it's like, are you kidding me? You started this whole thing. This is pretty much all going on because of you. Ugh, it's too much. Anyway. So I want to bring a little bit more about Aeneas here, and then we'll move on to when Diomedes takes on Ares, the god of war himself. All right. So let's look at page 178. This is about line 502-ish. All right. So Diomedes takes on Aeneas and charges him 3 times. 3 times he charged, frenzied to bring him down. 3 times Apollo battered his gleaming shield back. Then at Tydides' 4th assault, like something superhuman, the archer, Apollo, who strikes from worlds away, shrieked out a voice of terror. Think, Diomedes, shrink back now. Enough of this madness, striving with the gods. We are not the same breed and never will be. The deathless gods and men who walk the earth, menacing so that Tydeus' son pulled back just a little, edging clear of a distant deadly archer's range, and Apollo swept Aeneas up from the onslaught and set him down on the sacred heights of Pergamus, the crest where the god's own temple had been built. There in the depths of the dark forbidden chamber, Leto and Artemis, who showered flights of arrows, healed the man and brought him back to glory. So, Aeneas is taken from the battlefield, and Aeneas is taken up and healed by the gods. But the Lord of the silver bow devised a phantom like Aeneas to the life, wearing his very armor, and round that phantom Trojans and brave Achaeans went at each other, hacking the oxides around their chests, the bucklers full and round, skin shields, tassels flying. But Phoebus Apollo called to blazing Ares, 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 destroyer of men, reeking blood, stormer of ramparts, can't you go and drag that man from the fighting? That daredevil Diomedes? He'd fight Father Zeus. He's just assaulted Love, Aphrodite. He stabbed her wrist like something superhuman. He even charged at me. All right. Aeneas is hurt. Aeneas is taken up and healed by the gods, but they put something down there, somebody down there, some creature, I don't know exactly what you want to say there, but put a phantom, that's the word that's used in the text, put a phantom down there that looks like Aeneas and dressed in armor as the fighting goes on around him. All right? And then Apollo calls to Ares and says, man, can we do something about this Diomedes? He is just killing us. All right. So, I want to read a little bit here and speak for a moment where Diomedes takes on Ares. We're going to look at page 191. So, looking at about line 952, the goddess here actually calls off the deal before where only Aphrodite could be the one that Diomedes goes after. All right, so let's take a look. It says, the goddess roused him on, her eyes blazing. True son of Tydeus, Diomedes, joy of my heart. Forget the orders. Nothing to fear, my friend, neither Ares nor any other god. You too, I'll urge you on with so much winning force. Up now, lash your racing horses at Ares first. Strike him at close range. No shrieking away here before that headlong Ares. Just look at the maniac, born for disaster. Double-dealing, lying, two-faced god. Just now he promised me and Hera, the war god, swore he'd fight the Trojans, stand behind the Argives. But now look, he's leading the Trojan rampage. His pledges thrown to the wind. All these double crossing things going on, not just in the realm of humans, but also in the realm of the gods. All right, so on the page 192, here we go. About line, let's see, 981, 2, 3, 4, about 985. But Athena, her eyes of fire, grabbed the flying shaft, flicked it over the car, and off it flew. Off it flew for nothing, and after him Diomedes yelled his war cry, lunging out with his own bronze spear, and Pallas rammed it home, deep in Ares' bowels where the belt cinched him tight. There Diomedes aimed and stabbed. He gouged him down his glistening flesh and wrenched the spear back out, and the brazen god of war let loose a shriek, roaring, thundering loud as 10,000 combat soldiers shriek with Ares' fury when massive armies clash. A shudder swept all ranks, Trojans and Argives both. Terror-struck by the shriek the god let loose, Ares, whose lust for slaughter never dies. So Diomedes hurts two gods, Aphrodite and Ares, in this one book, book 5. All right? And similarly, in this very same way, it seems that Aphrodite started all this stuff, got all these people roused up. She goes and cries to her mom whenever something bad happens. Watch what Ares, the god of war, ends up doing. Okay? This is the very bottom of page 192. Father Zeus, this is Ares talking to Father Zeus, aren't you incensed to see such violent, brutal work? We everlasting gods, what chilling blows we suffer, thanks to our own conflicting wills whenever we show these mortal men some kindness. And we all must battle you. You brought that senseless daughter into the world, that murderous curse forever bent on crimes, Athena. While all the rest of us, every god on Olympus bows down to you, each of us overpowered. But that girl, you never block her way with a word or action, never. You spur her on, since you gave her birth from your own head. That child of devastation, remember the Athena sprung fully formed from the head of Zeus. Just look at this reckless Diomedes now. Athena spurred him on to rave against the gods. First he lunges at Aphrodite, stabs her hand at the wrist, then charges me, even me, like something superhuman. But I'm so fast on my feet, I saved my life. Else for a good long while I'd have felt the pain, writhing among the corpses there, or soldiered on, weak as a breathless ghost beaten down by bronze. But Zeus, who marshal storm clouds, lowered a dark glance and let loose at Ares. No more you lying, two-faced, no more sidling up to me, whining here before me. You, I hate you most of all the Olympian gods, always dear to your heart, strife. Yes. And battles, the bloody grind of war. You have your mother's uncontrollable rage, incorrigible that Hera, Zeus and Hera always in conflict. Say what I will, I can hardly keep her down. Hera's urgings I trust. Have made you suffer this. But I cannot bear to see you agonize so long. You are my child. To me, your mother bore you. If you had sprung from another god, believe me, and grown into such a blinding devastation long ago, you have dropped below the Titans. Keep in the dark pit. Deep in the dark pit. All right. A lot has happened here. I can't believe it was just summarized briefly in on Audible or Sora or whatever, because there's a lot going on here, a lot of death, a lot of destruction, a lot of blood, guts, and gore. All right, so if that's your kind of thing, please take the time and go back over it. Okay, my expectation is that you're reading and then you're coming to me to help you understand what's going on, because while I did speak a lot about this particular book, book 5, I didn't talk about everything. There's still more in here. All right, and there's more for you to decipher and figure out and analyze and consider and discuss. All right, so we're going to look at book 6 next, of course. So please do your reading beforehand. Until then, as always, happy reading.